Oh, still got my hat on. Yeah. Talk to me, sire, while I'm taking my hat.
Talk to you? I don't know. It's been bucketing down with rain here the last couple of days, with flooding everywhere. And
Have you got flooding?
well, not where I am, but in other sort of parts of the state. Yeah, they're evacuating whole townships and everything. So
Okay, goodness.
yeah, it's quite a lot of rain. A few fatalities too, unfortunately. People trying to drive through flooded creeks and that ended up getting washed away. So
yeah,
but it's like lots of things. People think that they're bulletproof, and
yeah.
Mother Nature has something else to say about that. So
Yeah, but it's interesting how people will do what turns out to be stupid things, because they think probably their 4x4 can, or they what we call pavement 4x4s, can get through.
Yeah, well, I mean, they totally underestimate the power of fast flowing water. Even if it's only like 6 or 12 inches deep, it's
correct.
Incredibly powerful. But some people think they know better.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's been a lot of angry people as usual on the phone and that. But
yeah. Oh, on your work side, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it just seems to be the way things are these days. I don't quite know why people get so angry, but it almost seems to be the default now. Sort of, I don't know. I sort of wonder, in a bit of a broader sense, like, are people becoming more stupid, or like, on the one hand, they'll ask you for advice and say, "Oh, what do you think about this?" or "What do you think about that?" And you sort of say, "Well, it's a bit hard to know because I don't know what your circumstances are, but these are the sort of things that, are generally important." And then they come snapping back like a barking dog. So,
yeah. You must actually ask them, have you been vaccinated? Yeah. Anyway,
it's most peculiar, but that's the nature of the beast at the moment, unfortunately. So.
Yeah.
It's a strange time in which we live in some ways, isn't it? That
strange energy.
That's a good way of describing it, actually. Very strange energy.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just sort of think, about like the incredible level of development that's going on, like around parts of Brisbane, like to the north, they're saying, I don't know, I think the planning horizon might be like 10 years. And they're saying there's going to be like hundreds of thousands of new homes developed and built, and there's satellite cities are cropping up everywhere around the place, and the nature of the housing is they'll build a house on a handkerchief at the moment. It's just
it's terrible.
And you sort of think, like, and there's no green space being allocated.
Isn't there?
No, it's terrible. It's just little boxes on top of little boxes, and so you kind of wonder what the implications are that for the health of those communities, don't you? So
for sure. But you also, is the population growing to that extent? Because we're having the same thing here in Perth. Masses of building going on. Okay, so they do allocate green space. I give them that. They're very good at allocating green space here. But my goodness me, the houses, as you say, are on top of each other, and you think, the population, it doesn't seem to be growing to the same rate.
No, well, I don't know whether it's an exodus out of some of the southern states, or or what it is, but it's yeah, certainly, like the numbers that they talk about just defy, like it's just, as you say, where are they all coming from?
Yeah, our premier says that they build in these new suburbs um, in order to entice the people that come from the east to the mining sector. Okay, and
Yeah,
there's a large number that fly every 2 weeks,
yeah.
uh,
And
and
they want them to move
they
permanently,
want
I
to
guess.
move and bring their families here, and
Mm.
so they're giving them big incentives to do that. Okay,
Mm.
um, I'm not
Um,
quite sure
I
either.
mean, they talk about, you know, high levels of migration from the southern states into Queensland, but it's hard to imagine that it's in the realm of the numbers that they're talking about, unless they're expecting a huge influx from overseas all of a sudden.
Well, that's my next point. Okay,
Yeah.
is that they probably, when China eventually takes over Australia,
Mm.
then they're going to need those homes.
Mm.
So,
Well, they've been talking for a long time, saying that Australia is really, going to be an Asian nation. So,
yeah,
and if you look at the region in which it is, I mean, it's in one sense surprising it's not already. So
yeah, and yeah. So I guess that they won't allow them in sort of on a legal basis. I think they just Yeah, I think the Chinese are just going to walk in.
yeah, well, there's an old Australian saying, like in you know pre-war days, there was big rabbit infestations in parts of Australia,
Yeah,
and so they would build these so-called rabbit-proof fences, to keep the rabbits out of, all the damage that they would, create in these properties. But once again, nature just sort of shows that you put enough pressure on one side of a fence and it falls over. So,
hmm
and it'll be the same with the population too, I guess. Like I mean,
mm.
Australia has by world standards, quite a low population, doesn't it? So,
Yes, it does. For
mm,
the you know for the size of the continent. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Um, and then they need so many migrants to just help you know the agricultural lands. Like,
well, this is the other thing, like the federal government sort of wants to introduce this, visa system to allow people to come to Australia to work, but the work that they're offering them is, picking fruit and working on
yeah,
farms and working in cafes and things like that, and
right, yeah.
the implication sort of being that the local population can't or won't do that work, but
But there isn't enough of them either. Okay, but I
probably not.
think
Yeah.
I think both. I think they don't want to do it, and
Mm.
and and it's very attractive to Indonesians and Asians and Chinese and
Oh, for
all
sure. Particularly if
because
they've
of
been paid
the
$1 an hour.
have been paid by the hour in dollars. Yes, be it Australian dollars, it's still a good scene.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so we'll wait and see. We've had a similar influx um, over the last decade, or 2 decades in South Africa too. People coming from the north, um, literally just walking in. I mean, there's no way of stopping. I mean, there are border posts and stuff like that. Then there are rivers, um, you know, crocodile-infested rivers, but people just come across, okay, and
Mm, mm.
en masse. So I haven't a clue what the latest statistic is, but it was high, when I was in there, and and before you know it, they're demanding rights.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the thing, isn't it? And it comes back to that sort of consumeristic sort of mindset a bit, doesn't it? That, oh, well, you know, it's cheaper to get things made in China,
Yeah,
on sand floor factories,
yeah,
But as the economic wealth increases in those communities, then they don't tolerate it either. So it it just sort of cycles you around to sort of say, well, you know, it's not acceptable in the first place. Pay people some decent money, and if you can't afford it, then the rules of business say, well, you won't be in business.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah. And South Africa has a very high unemployed population, very high, and they're all basically, not all, but the biggest percentage are under 35. Okay.
wow.
You know, and that's always a danger signal, you know, historically anywhere in the world.
Well, that's right, and I mean, it just is a breeding ground for corruption and crime and all those sort of things, isn't it? You know, so.
And uprising and discontentment, you know, yeah. Anyway, we'll see how that unfolds from a distance at the moment, unless the Australian government decide otherwise with us.
I don't know that much is going to happen on your front, is it? You know, until probably into the middle of next year, I would have thought. But that's just
I think so too. You know,
I mean, there's a pretty strong suggestion that there'll be a federal election between March and May of next year. You know, so as soon as they announce that, it goes into caretaker mode, where I don't think any government department makes any decisions. You know.
Yeah. I mean, our international borders are still closed, and it was I saw on the news today that he doesn't know when they're going to be opened. Okay, and that the travel industry are really peed off about that. You know.
Well, I mean, once again, though, isn't it? You know, like, at what expense? You know, I mean, put aside COVID and all the, you know, the controversy around that, but I mean, if it's been driven by a health directive, you know, as I said, put the controversy aside, then surely people's health and well-being has to be more important than the profitability of a few businesses.
Yeah, but it's you know, if it were, he claims it's a health issue, 100%. That's why he's doing it. Okay. Okay. But as you know, there are lots of opinions about whether that is the case, and you know, are you going to continue this for how many years? Okay. I mean, we've had some of, you know, in our lifetime, we've had some of the worst flu type cases and things, and you know, always got through it, always moved on, and
there certainly wasn't lockdowns and things like that, was there, through those sort of environments? So
no, and so you know, there's clearly another motive, and it's just unfortunate that everybody gets forced to either toe the line that they want or suffer.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
So how did your spirituality class go?
Yeah, thanks for asking about that. It's it went particularly well. Okay.
Oh, good.
With the changes, and as you know, the changes were also sort of with a first phase for the one that I've got to give next week. Okay, which is basically spirituality and Christmas. Okay.
Yeah.
And so it went well. I got good participation and interaction, and I finished it. You know, along. You know, I read the introduction to you last week. And, yeah. Well, I'm happy. So and now I've now just completed the one for next week, and I'm pleased about that one. I'm happy with it. Okay.
Oh, good.
And because it somehow, brings me back to my spiritual roots. Or,
and so with the participation that you got into it, like you were, in contrast to what's happened in the past, it was, quite positive, and that was it? Or?
Yes, it was. It was positive, and we had newcomers in that hadn't been there before, and so they seemed to. I think the key aspect, Don, was the word source. Okay,
yeah.
That was, I think, the big difference. And I sort of carried that word through the entire class with various questions, and somehow people were very relaxed with it and liked the word source.
Okay.
And so now with next week one, it's got to be, I guess, Christ related or Jesus Christ related, and so. I started a little bit sort of, where did this whole Christmas come from? I'm sort of to and fro. How much of that do I bring in? Because right back, almost soon after Christ died, the culture was not to celebrate any savior or guru or something's birth. Okay.
Yeah.
So it was like put aside, and then there were one or two people that sort of did pick it up. People that had a motive. Okay. And rulers. They were rulers that had a motive, and so things were started, and then along came the saint. Saint Nicholas. And but that was also maybe 1,000 years later. But he was a saint, and he went around doing a hell of a lot of good and doing a hell of a lot of healing. And so a lot of the Christian movement sort of adopted him as the caring person, the role model, if you like. And still to this day, the countries in Europe that it's St. Nicholas that brings the gifts.
Yeah.
And so, until Coca-Cola came up with Father Christmas. So I didn't know how much of that sort of history to bring in, and how much to rather get back to the spiritual truth. What did Christ represent, in our lives today? When we. So hopefully I've got a bit of a balance. I've put more emphasis finally on less of the history and more of the meaning and the feeling.
I think that's a good question to pose. Bring it to today. Don't talk about what happened. Supposedly a couple of 1,000 years ago. What's going on now? What's the message out of that?
And I also, I've got two classes that I had to split the information to decide how to approach. One class that they asked me to do was, legends of Christianity. Okay. So that was, and then the other one was spirituality.
What do they mean by legends? Like stories, or? Yeah?
No, I think they were talking about the legend of all these things relating to Christmas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so I managed to push a lot of the stuff I've just been telling you into that particular class, and then keep more with the spirituality, and just sort of hardly alluding to the history, and focusing. I mean, I'd be happy to share the class, but that I've also just sort of make it more Christmas or Christ orientated, the spiritual one. I've put images, which I've never done before. I only ever put questions, no images on the spiritual things, but I decided now for this one, and maybe I'll carry it through. I put sort of very either an image if it was relative with Jesus Christ, but then otherwise sort of spiritual type images, energy type images, vague images but attractive images with the question as well. So that's I'm going to see how that pans out next week. Anyway.
Oh, sounds
yeah,
good.
thanks. So it is. No, I'm comfortable with that. What I'm not comfortable with are these holiday travel things that they've asked me to do, and I did one today, first one today, in fact, and it was like top Christmas destinations around the world, and I created it. It's not easy it's easy. I mean, it is easy to just copy and paste, as it were. There's not too much intelligence. And I did that, but then I landed up with far too little content because there was no participation. I'm so used to participation that I know how many pages of content I need to have, and I was finished 20 minutes early. So that's the way it was, but I'll get more experienced at this travel thing. I have to, and quickly, because I've got two lots going parallel. But anyway,
I wonder if it's worth sort of trying to get them to talk about, what their Christmas destinations are, whether it's, grandma's place or the parents' place, or they go away to the beach, or they go away to the mountains, or they, I don't know. Because maybe families don't do that much anymore. I don't know, but
it's a really good idea, a suggestion of yours. The issue with the travel ones is that very few of them physically come into the class. Okay, most of them watch from what is now called the lounge. Okay, and they don't have any. But those that do come in, I think they largely just want to be entertained. Okay, and so, but I think if I maybe push a little bit more on the question side, let me just write that down, because I never took an approach like I do with my others, with the question. So let me just make a note of that here somewhere. Okay.
Because I know in North America, just the whole thing around Thanksgiving is almost like the precursor to Christmas, isn't it? It's almost like, okay, the Christmas season has started.
Yeah.
And I know that they have a whole lot of tradition there around, Thanksgiving and, coming together for meals and all of that sort of thing. So.
Yeah.
Even the president, what does he do? Pardons the turkey or something, or I don't know. I don't.
Yeah, I don't know either. And one of my classes, with the Thanksgiving, they said, "Do you celebrate Thanksgiving?" I said, "But that's an American thing." I said, one of your presidents, invented that, and oh, is that so? Yeah, it's got nothing to do with the rest of the world. Okay. No. So, yeah, we all know about it.
Well, that's right, and I mean also the whole North American approach to Halloween as well, isn't it? So
yes,
I think Halloween is over in in Europe as well, though, isn't it? I think.
Yes, it is, and it's very heavy here in Australia. Eh?
It never used to be.
It's heavy here. It's really.
It's only a recent arrival, as far as I'm concerned. But,
yeah. Well, even the first year that we were here, 3 years ago, the people decorate outside of their houses, and then they wander around from house to house. The street is full of people and kids, and knocking on doors, and asking for sweets or asking for something, and then I don't know what they do if you don't give them sweets. But so this year we actually bought some sweets for people that came knocking,
Yeah.
and not a single person came knocking. So, no, we said that they all wrapped up individually. I said, why don't we just keep it for next year Halloween?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So yeah, all these festivals and they all, I guess, part of Satanism. I don't quite understand how people interpret anything with Halloween, anything other than that. But they come with all sorts of ideas. Yeah. And then I remember in South Africa where Guy Fawkes used to be a big celebration, okay, and big fireworks and all
Same
the
here. Yeah, I mean, that's what I grew up with as a child. Not so
Yeah.
much about Guy Fawkes, but we used to just call it Cracker Night, So,
Oh, okay.
and you just go and blow up all your neighbours' letterboxes and stuff like that. But,
Yeah. 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 So it's virtually sort of died out now because every Tom, Dick, and Harry had fireworks going on that night.
yeah,
What,
yeah, yeah.
what was the 5th of November, wasn't it?
I can't remember the
I
date.
think so. Yeah, I think it was the 5th of November, and then you'd see the whole suburb would light up, and of course some people's crackers would land on other people's dry grass, and then there were fires that were started. Yes.
Someone decides to start a bonfire, and before you know it, it's
Yeah, absolutely.
the whole suburb's alight. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's in South Africa now they said only they still have the bonfires and things, but only allowed in licensed public places that have been allocated for that. So people got to go there.
Yeah.
And
it's all controlled. Yeah.
It's all controlled a lot better, yeah.
Mm.
But the Chinese still sell their crackers in the shops, and people still buy the crackers, and you run around the streets throwing these crackers everywhere.
Mm.
So, what was that other festival, the English festival, where you had a maypole and what was that?
Well, they danced around it with ribbons or something, wasn't
it?
Yeah.
Because I think there were also firecrackers as part of that as well.
Well, we might see some more like Asian type festivals coming in, like particularly Indian festivals, because this time of year, through the southern hemisphere, spring into summer, they've got something going on all the time. They have the what is it like? They call it is it a water festival, where they go and throw coloured powders over each other and throw water over each other, and it's all this sort of festival of colour.
Yeah.
And I can remember as a child, I mean, I lived up in Malaysia for a couple of years in 1970. And one of the Indian festivals, they do fire walking and, body piercing and all that sort of stuff. And it was a bit of a sight.
Another one is, of course, is in Rio, in Brazil. December is the festivity. Time of the year. And they really go to town, festival after festival, and floats, these enormous big floats with, depending on the festival and so on as well. And because Rio is also sort of like for South America, in fact, maybe for the American continent, that's the sort of Christian hub, if you like.
Yeah, very strong Catholic, isn't it, up there?
Very strong Catholic, yeah, because of the statue, the Redeemer, the Christ Redeemer, on that hilltop, on the Sugarloaf hilltop, enormous statue of Christ with his arms out, standing, and so every excuse, Christian excuse, including Easter and other festivities, are sort of on the promenade, but looking up at this statue. And then they talking about color, okay, they actually shine or dress the statue in color and different colors depending on the festival.
Okay.
So you get that enormous big statue right up on the mountain, really looking incredible with different colors and different patterns. They do patterns as well on it, light. So yeah, great festivities there. I'm not sure how much anything means deeper than just the festivities.
Just a party. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what Christmas has turned into, isn't it? You know, it's just a bit of a eat, drink, and be merry type thing.
Yeah, but the interesting thing with Christmas is that it's I would say probably, or let's say half of the people that celebrate Christians celebrate Christmas are not Christians. They're not in the Christian faith at all. Okay. So Christmas has largely become a time of the year for holidays and festivities. Okay. And reason for drinking and so forth. And everybody basically in the world, or governments in the world, give Christmas Day, there's some exceptions, but give Christmas Day as a holiday. So whether you're Christian or not Christian, it is a holiday. And so it's taken on a whole new turn, this Christmas. And I mean, all the faiths join in. So, and they all celebrate it. And they all tend to give presents as well. Other times of the year as well, for some of those Indians you were mentioning. But yeah, it's now Christmas, thanks to Coca-Cola, I guess. It's no longer Christ's Mass. Okay.
No, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even the spelling, they just go X Mass.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway. So how do you celebrate Christmas on Christmas Day? By the way, before you answer that, how's your mother?
Yeah, no, she's not too bad. She's well, having said that, she did have a bit of a fall there the other day, but she's her own worst enemy in some ways, because the nurse sort of says to her, "Have you been drinking your water?" And she says, "Oh no, I don't, because it makes me go to the bathroom." Well,
yeah.
You know where that's going to end, And I always take fresh fruit up to her on a Sunday, and she's like, "Don't bring me any more of those pears because they make me go to the toilet." And I says, "Yeah, well, isn't that the idea, So.
Yes. Yeah, you got to have your fiber.
Yeah. So she's her own worst enemy a bit, but anyway. No, she's still doing okay.
Okay, I'm pleased to hear that. Okay. And so how do you celebrate? Because historically, maybe before your mother went into the home, okay?
Yeah, well, it would normally just be a family get-together, lunch, or usually lunch.
And what would you eat for lunch? What meats, for example?
That's the thing. Yeah, that was always normally a roast dinner, and in the middle of summer, like ham.
A roast turkey.
No, not so much turkey, but it was like ham and roast beef and roast lamb and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Way too much food. Way too much.
Yeah, always is. Always was. Yeah. And now, how do you celebrate now? Like last year.
Just go over. Well, we went over to my oldest son's place, and that sort of like the focal point has always been around, around children, So when my children were younger, it would be around, the focus would be around them, and now with my oldest son, he's got 2 young daughters, so last year and this year again, it'll be around, around the children and, putting on a nice day for them, you know. So,
And
and we gather.
decorating the house and so on.
No, not really. No.
Christmas tree.
You have a Christmas tree, yeah, yeah. You know, do a bit of stuff for the kids and that, but it's not to the same extent that it. I mean, I know when you know, when my kids were quite young, you know, we would sort of decorate the house, like, you know, or one room of the house, if, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, have all of that, but no, not really. I mean, we don't go and put lights up in the front garden or anything like that, you know.
Yeah. Interesting. We didn't in South Africa either. Nobody did really. It wasn't a sort of a culture there to do that.
No.
Yeah.
You know, and I think the thing about it too is, you know, like in one sense, you know, because you're at, you know, different stages of your life, you know, like you might be struggling a little bit financially or whatever, and even if you weren't, the expectations seem to raise proportionally that, you know, like, oh, well, there's going to be gifts. So if we were doing okay financially, then the nature of those gifts had to be a lot more extravagant, you know.
Right.
You know, which is the old consumerism kicked in big time sort of thing, you know. So, whereas a few years ago, you know, like as a family, we took the decision as apart from the children, like we wouldn't give gifts to each other.
Right.
And the idea being was we would just spend some time together, you know, without having to have the pressure of buying stuff for people that you didn't know what to buy and, you know, all that sort of stuff. So, yeah. So there'd be gifts for the kids, you know, as part of their excitement sort of thing. But in terms of the adults, it was more about just, yes, having a meal together rather than, you know, buying gifts for each other. So, yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. You're fortunate. They're all in reasonably close proximity.
Yeah, reasonably. Yeah, I mean, there's some members of the family, you know, like my daughter, she's down in Melbourne and she won't be back this year. And she wasn't there last year either, but no, yeah, I mean, as presumably as things get back into a little bit of normality in terms of interstate travel, then, you know, we'll see them again probably. So
yeah. What I really meant was that you know, I've got kids in Britain, in the Netherlands, in South Africa. So yeah. It's different. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, even you know, when I listen to my mother reminiscing about her, you know, early part of her life, she used to say that, you know, the main reasons that families came together was weddings and funerals. You know. So.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You know, she even just tell the story like with her own marriage. You know that after the church service, you know, they went to the reception. You know, and as they came in through the front door, you know, Dad turns to Mum and says, "Oh, I think we're in the wrong place. Like, who are all these people?" And she says, "Oh, yeah, that's all the family." He said, "I've never seen half these people before."
Is your daughter in down south? Is she married?
And no, she's engaged, but not married at this stage. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so she probably goes off to the boyfriend's parents.
Well, they live up here as well. So,
oh, do they?
Yeah.
Oh,
So I think it's just going to be a quiet Christmas for them, I think. So
yeah. Because can't you still can't travel through those various states down on the east coast?
Well, it's not so much about down there; it's just you just can't get back because a bit like the West Australia, the Queensland border is still shut. You know.
Yeah.
So if you do go down there, you know, the price of coming back is to spend 2 weeks in a quarantine hotel or something at your own expense. So. And I think they charge something like $1,000 a day or something per person or something. I don't know.
Goodness. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but as I said, once the borders reopen, then maybe that'll
change. Yeah.
That'll change a bit. Yeah. But yeah, it's hard to believe it's on like a couple of years now, really, isn't it? Coming up, in terms of border closures and that sort of thing. So,
yeah.
And what about you for Christmas? Again, I suppose it's pretty much just you and Sue, is it? So
yeah, it is. And last year is when his son had a girlfriend and so on, and then they invited us there for lunch. Okay, and we went there, and and the year before that, the first year we were here, they were still married, and so they invite us around for Christmas lunch there as well. And this year we're just leaving it open because I guess the mother with the two daughters now, they may, I don't know, invite us over. Nobody's spoken about it, so we just in our own mind planning to spend it here, and we in our own way we try and make it special for ourselves, and we would like maybe decorate it. Last year we had bought a Christmas tree in a pot. Okay.
Well, will you like to celebrate? Any excuse for a celebration?
Yes, that's absolutely. That's spot on. Okay. So I look for any excuse. Yeah. And this year we're going to decorate. We've got an iron. In fact, you can probably see it. Let me just turn it. Oh dear. Now I don't know what's happening. Let me just. Oh yes, you see there on the wall there. You see a red bouquet of flowers up there on a stand. Now that's a metal stand. So what we're going to do, we're going to pretend that's a Christmas tree. You see?
Oh, cool. Okay.
And so we're going to decorate that, and we'll put some presents underneath it, because remember Christmas Day is also Sue's birthday. Okay.
Oh really? Oh okay. Yeah. There you go. Double whammy.
Double whammy. So strange. I would hate to have gone through all my life where people, like it happened with Sue. Everybody would say, "Well, here's a present. Happy birthday, happy Christmas."
Yeah.
So you would lose out.
Well, my father's birthday was on Boxing Day.
Oh, was it? Okay.
So it was a little bit like that too. It's like, Merry Christmas, Happy Birthday.
Yeah. So when Sue and I got together, I said to her, we're going to celebrate them separately. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And we thought about it, and we tried one thing to do maybe on the 24th when we were in South Africa and invited people around for her birthday. Okay. Then we thought, no, in Europe they do Christmas on the 24th, the eve. And then when we came here, I said, I'll tell you what we do. From the time we wake up until lunchtime, it's birthday. Okay. And that's it. Okay. Then at lunchtime, it's now Christmas time. Okay. And because we also have another ritual that we love doing, and that is 7 days prior to your birthday. Okay. This is something that we created between Sue and ourselves. Every morning on those 7 days, you would get a birthday present. Okay.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So again, it depends on one's financial situation. So it might just be a bar of chocolate and a packet of biscuits or something, or it might be a T-shirt or something like that. Okay, but it's a present you open.
That's a great idea.
It is, it's super, like builds up, and then now with her, she would get her main present on the morning of the 25th. Okay, and that would be her birthday. Then, we for Christmas we have 3 Christmas presents each. Okay, one is around lunchtime, one is mid-afternoon tea, and one is in the evening. Okay, so. Yes, you're right. I'll make any excuse to celebrate and have fun. So
before you came to Australia, had you heard of the Christmas in July thing before?
I had, yes, I had. Why do you ask?
Oh, I was just wondering whether that was sort of like an Australian thing. I mean, I've never really understood it, other than perhaps it's an attempt to try and have a Christmas in a cold environment, perhaps, but I don't know. So.
I think it goes back to certain religious denominations that are absolutely adamant that the 25th of December is just a pagan festival that's been turned into Christian, okay? And that the real birth date was July, okay? And so that whatever, I don't know, it might be no, it won't be the Russian Orthodox, because the Russian Orthodox say it's the 6th of January. That is Christmas Day. So they celebrate on the 6th of January. Okay. So, but another religion celebrates in July. So, yeah, I don't mind. I can be all those religions and celebrate on all those.
The whole lot.
Yeah. Maybe I can even make up my own, Yeah.
The United Nations of Religions, So, as long as there's a party attached to it, you'll be there.
A celebration, I regard a celebration as anything from, going out to your favorite coffee shop, having a cappuccino and, some sort of food to put in your mouth. And and it's great, that's a celebration, that's interaction, it's fun. And often spontaneously I say to Sue, hey, I got paid today. Why don't we go and celebrate?
That's right.
It's like into the car and off we would go.
Perfect.
Yeah. So, yeah, and it's worth it, and that's why you've got to find a partner again.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Anyway.
Find an angry customer that's a female.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah. The work function, I think it's on they have like a work, I think they call it a Christmas party.
Yeah.
And that's on, I think it's the 11th of December.
Right.
And they normally do 2 things. They'll have a sort of a get together, sort of mid to late afternoon around an activity. And then.
What type of activity?
Well, last year it was lawn bowls.
Okay.
This year they've stepped it up a bit. It's axe throwing.
Oh, goodness me. Okay.
Yeah. So there's actually an establishment. It calls itself Maniacs. And it's an axe throwing establishment. So it was interesting though, because they said, are you going to come? And I said, yeah, I'll come, sort of thing. And I said, okay, well, we have to let the venue know, because there's a disclaimer you have to sign before you can go. And oh my goodness, this disclaimer, it was about 4 pages long, and I don't think I've ever read any document of any sort that had the word death in it so many times.
In case you chop off somebody's head with the axe.
Yeah. And I was thinking, oh goodness, do I really want to go?
Yeah, I felt just in the case somebody gets sued for something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and that's the thing.
Yeah. So, can you throw the axe any way you like, or you got a certain way that you like to throw? Can you throw it like a discus? swirl
No,
around.
I think there's going to be a bit of instruction around it, I think. So it's sort of
Okay.
interesting because the venue has, well, like, like a bowling alley has all of the bowling lanes.
Mm.
Well, this is like almost like indoor cricket, where you have all of these, like, like an indoor cricket pitch with with the
Yeah.
chain wire fencing.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah.
there's about half a dozen of those things, So
Okay.
and you throw an axe up against a wooden wall that's got a target on it. So
Yeah. Yeah. So you were saying you start in the afternoon with an event, okay, and then
yeah, and then there's normally a dinner afterwards, So
at a hotel or somewhere like that.
normally just a restaurant or something like that.
Restaurant.
So,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
And then everybody brings their spouse.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're quite a generous employer. I mean, they
Okay.
pay for the lot, sort of thing, and
Yeah.
and in addition, apart from that, they give every staff member, a cooked leg of ham,
Okay.
that
Nice.
sort of thing. Yeah, so
And do they give bonuses as well?
they do that every quarter based on,
Oh, I see.
and they're not an individual bonus. It's just based on the overall performance of the organisation, and they just share it with everyone. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
which I think is a good idea. It
Yeah.
cuts out a bit of that competitive nonsense, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I think they're. I mean, it's a family-owned business, and they seem to have still fairly strong family values, even in how they run their business. So,
That's great. That's
mm.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
quite a rare thing in my experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so they seem to be quite compassionate. Like through the whole COVID thing, even though they've done particularly well through the lockdowns and that from a business perspective, they've gone out of their way to make sure that no one lost their job. And during the lockdowns, particularly in Sydney and Melbourne, they've changed their plans around like refurbishing buildings and that during the lockdown and stuff like that. So
Okay.
they've kept everyone actively employed and never attempted to cut anything back or even seek support from the government or anything. They've just sort of said, no,
Right.
this is our business. We take responsibility for it, and we'll do what we need to do, sort of thing. So
Yeah. That's great. That's really good to hear.
mm, mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, so I think and I'm really sort of quite like the way that they operate.
Good
But
example.
well, they are a good example, but they find themselves bumping up against some, I suppose you'd probably call them like moral type issues, that now that they've got quite a successful wholesale part to their business, the wholesale people they wholesale to are companies like Bunnings and Total Tools and Sydney Tools and those sorts of organisations, which
Yeah.
are just large corporate organisations that would run over you for the sake of saving 5 cents, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's
Sure.
some issues in terms of how they're dealing with these big corporate entities, but again they seem to have navigated that path quite successfully to date anyway. So
Right. Right. Okay.
mm.
And do you get involved at sort of the ownership level with consulting, IIB type consulting?
A little bit around some business process stuff, like around the call center and that, but
Yeah.
I've sort of elected not to, from a
Okay.
personal level at this
Okay.
stage.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. In one, I was sort of reflecting on it a little bit there a week or two ago, and I was sort of thinking it's been interesting because, like, a big chunk of my career it was sort of operating at very senior levels of organisations and quite large organisations, and I'm finding it incredibly refreshing just operating at that frontline level,
Okay.
interacting with customers and perhaps seeing perspectives around how businesses operate that I used to make assumptions about.
Okay. Yeah.
And so so I'm finding it quite rewarding in that sense. So
okay. Yeah. Okay.
Rewarding and in some ways humbling, and in other ways frustrating. But so
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
There was years ago. There was an airline here in Australia that was Ansett Airlines was the name of the. They've since gone bust, but one of their policies is that the senior executives had to spend at least one day a month at the front line.
Okay.
And you can sort of see the merits of that if it was done properly, not just as a token gesture, but if they genuinely went there to experience that frontline work environment and interact with customers and see how the decisions that they'd made are being implemented at that level.
Right.
I suspect it turned into more of a gimmick than a bona fide thing, but because I think one of the other American airlines started that too, didn't they? I was trying to think which one it was. Was it anyway? But I think they used to make their senior management team go and work at the front line.
Right.
May not have been as often as monthly, but to go out there and walk the talk.
Yeah. I think it's a really good idea, though. Good concept.
Well, it is too, and I think there's far too much hierarchy in organisations. Creates too many barriers. It's artificial. It's egotistical. It's all of those things. So,
yeah. Okay, probably a good place to call it an evening.
Sounds good. Good. Okay.
Yeah, interesting.
Well, all things being equal, I'll see you on Sunday then. Huh?
Yes, definitely.
So are you working through the Christmas period?
Yes, yeah.
In some ways, it could be quite a busy period for you, perhaps.
Well, there's so many changes in Get Set Up. They've as I mentioned before, they've now got this enormous big partner or investor, so we say, of old people, and they've in America. So it's now sort of they now are going to be worldwide, working 24/7. Okay.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. And so they and a lot of changes on everything, on all of it, on platforms, on the website, and so forth, and how they want their guides to move forward. So yeah, there's a lot of change, and so yeah, it doesn't matter which holiday it is. I mean, Christmas Day, I think, falls on a Saturday, so I don't work on a Saturday, or Sue doesn't either. But if it did, we would work. Okay, it just we enjoy what we're doing. We don't need a holiday from it. The work itself is a holiday.
Yeah.
So no, we just keep going. We like, that's why we make it at least trying to get out every Saturday, just anyway, just to get out of the premises, And
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, we do, and we will. When a visa comes through again, then we've got to move out for at least 3 days somewhere. So we'll have to build that in once we know. So as long as he keeps the borders closed, we're very happy.
Yeah, well, it's a pretty dangerous virus, as you and I agree. So the longer they keep the borders closed, the better, I guess. So.
Goodbye. See you Sunday.
Okay. See ya.
See ya.
Bye.